At least to me, it's apparent today in what we've heard, what's going on here, that Americans now know that government transparency under this administration simply means what you see is not what you get. And that's concerning to me. Ms. Tavener, do you believe Obamacare was crafted in a way that was transparent to the American taxpayer?
I certainly believe that the work that I've been a part of for the last 5 years has been transparent.
Was Obamacare crafted in a way to be transparent?
I was not here during the crafting of Obamacare.
Ms. Tavener, would you say the administration is transparent in its implementation of Obamacare then? You've been here for that.
Yes, sir. I think we have tried to be transparent, and we've tried to provide documents, including the documents that we sent yesterday. To date, we've already provided 135,000 pages of documents and provided more than a dozen transcribed interviews. So I think we have tried to be transparent.
But not completely.
Wherever we can, we have been transparent.
Wherever we can. Okay. Another term that could be used in this hearing, whenever we can. I don't recall, probably. Those are reoccurring terms. Mr. Gruber, the Obama administration promised the American people 37 times that if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. When you were working on the law, did you believe, Mr. Gruber, did you believe that no one would lose a plan they liked due to Obamacare?
I believe that the law would not affect the vast majority of Americans.
The vast majority? But did you believe that no one, as the president said, would lose a plan they liked?
As I said, I believe it would not affect the vast majority of Americans, but it is true that some people might have to upgrade their plans because their plans were not comprehensive as defined under the law.
So they couldn't keep their plan even if they liked it?
What the law says is there's minimum standards to be met.
Why did the president make this representation if his experts, including you, knew it was not true? That some, as you've said, would not be able to keep their plan. They would have to upgrade or they'd have to change it.
I'm not a political advisor, and I have no answer to that question.
You acknowledged in a 2013 article in The New Yorker that not everyone who liked their plans could keep their plans, Mr. Gruber. When you knew that the administration's representations to the American people were false, such as in this instance, did you ever voice any concern? Why or why not?
I interpreted the administration's comments as saying that for the vast majority of Americans, this law would not affect the productive health insurance relationships they have. And so I did not see a problem with the administration's statement.
But you're an economist with a model that you described as entirely accurate. You're a learned professor, and we don't take that away from you at all. And yet the president 37 times said if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. I'm here today to say that in my constituency of almost 800,000 people, Julie Boonstra, a leukemia patient who had a plan she liked, couldn't keep that plan. She's not stupid. She couldn't keep that plan. Mark and Kate, a young pastor and wife at a local church, now expecting, as of yesterday, cannot keep the plan they had and can't find a plan that's adequate for them to replace it. Dustin, a hardworking young man in my district, spent almost the entire weekend trying to up onto Obamacare from a plan that he lost, he couldn't keep. And as of yesterday morning, I watched him try to get a plan through the website, through talking with people connected with the website. He still couldn't get it. He had a plan he liked. He's not stupid. He couldn't keep it. Numerous constituents have contacted me saying that while they may have found a plan under Obamacare, not necessarily a plan that they liked or they could keep, but found a plan like Mr. Goldman that was reasonable in cost, yet when they got to the point of having to pay their deductibles, their co-pays, their out-of-pocket expenses, or the prescription drug costs, they couldn't afford it. And I would suggest that, again, transparency here is what you see is not what you get.
In the Congress, and many of my colleagues here on
the federal government. If you qualify for Obamacare tax credits, isn't it the case that
Once again, January 1st, 2014.
are you suggesting
I always assumed that credits would be available regardless of whether the exchange is run by a state or the federal government. My comments in January 2012 were reflecting the uncertainty about whether those federal exchanges might be ready by January 2014.
So you were paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to run an economic model on Obamacare, and yet you were making statements that didn't reflect the actual language of Obamacare?
I made a series of statements which were really just inexcusable.
All right, thank you.
Would the gentleman yield?
I yield back.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand. We famously heard that you have to pass it to find out what's in it. So, following up on Mr. Amash, at the time of its passage, were you aware that the language would have allowed your model not to actually be executed? In other words, that states were not going, if they chose not to, if even one state chose not to provide, the language explicitly was preventing that reimbursement, and thus you'd have a different result. Were you ever given that information so you could run a revised model?
I was always modeling the availability of tax credits under the assumption they'd be available in all states.
Okay, so you always modeled something that was different than the law. And but let me just go and do one quick thing while I've got the time. You're an author, and I've purchased one of your books. In that book, it's Dr. Jonathan Gruber is professor of economics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and director of the healthcare program at the National Bureau of Economic Research. He was a key architect of Massachusetts' ambitious healthcare reform effort and consulted extensively with Obama administration and Congress during the development of the Affordable Care Act. The Washington Post called him possibly the Democratic, in parentheses, party's most influential health care expert. Do you recognize that as being in your book?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and then so if you're an author, you put it in your book and you recognize it, do you stand by it?
Absolutely.
So you are, in fact, a key architect of the act in Massachusetts under Governor Romney, and that you did contribute extensively to the administration and to Congress.
I contributed an enormous amount of modeling and economic support to administration and Congress. Yes.
It says you consulted extensively with the Obama administration and Congress during the development of the Affordable Care Act. And you quoted the Washington Post, and you stand by all of that.
I cannot stand by the Washington Post's opinion of my role in the Democratic Party, but I can certainly stand by the fact that I provided an enormous number of hours.
Well, you put it in your book, right?
I was quoting, it was a flattering quote to me, and I put it in my book, but it's their definition, not mine.
So you want to stand by something you put in a book, including the consulted extensively with the Obama administration and Congress, but now you want to distance yourself from the Washington Post?
I'm just saying it wasn't my words. I put them in quotes because they're Washington Post words.
Oh, okay. So we'll let the Washington Post credibility speak for itself. I thank you. We now go to Mr. Gowdy.
Professor Gruber, what did you mean when you said they proposed it and that passed because the American people are too stupid to understand the difference?
When I said that, I was at an academic conference being glib and, quite frankly, trying to make myself seem smart by insulting others.
Are you offering the venue as a defense for saying it or for meaning it?
I'm offering it as a defense for using inappropriate and hurtful and inexcusable language to express.
Well, what did you mean by too stupid to understand the difference?
Congressman, I didn't mean anything by it.
Well, you said it. You had to admit it.
I was once again being glib and trying to make myself seem smarter by reflecting.
Well, what did you mean when you said it was a very basic exploitation of the lack of economic understanding of the American voter? What did you mean by that?
Once again, it's another example of my inexcusable arrogance in trying to insult others to make myself seem smarter.
Well, what did you mean when you said the American people don't care about the uninsured?
Once again, that was an overstatement of trying to conjecture on political topics in which I'm not an expert.
Well, you know what, Professor Gruber, I have listened to you all morning talk about your lack of political acumen and that you're not a politician, so therefore you don't know not to call people stupid. Most of the people watching this morning aren't politicians, and they don't call people stupid. And I can't help but note, Professor Gruber, and another one of your quotes, which I'll read to you, that was politically infeasible. You remember saying that?
Yes.
So you do like to factor in the politics from time to time, don't you? And also happen to know, Professor Gruber, that usually you insult the American voter, not the American public. So you do factor in politics, don't you?
I have tried a number of occasions, pretended that I know more about politics.
Do you think not being a politician is a defense? And is that your defense this morning? I mean, I know initially you said that you offered these comments at a conference. I think you meant conferences, plural, but you said conference when you went on a very obscure television show and initially apologized for what you said were inappropriate comments. And now today your defense is that you're not a politician. Is that the best you can come up with?
The best I come up with is to really just apologize for an inexcusable.
Well, but I want to know, I mean, the pervasiveness of your quotes is so much that it has to be more than that. It has to be more than just an episodic mistake that you made. Well, here, let me keep going. See if this helps you any. What did you mean when you said you wish that you had been able to be transparent, but you'd rather have the law than not?
Once again, it was my trying to conjecture about a political process in which I'm not an expert.
Well, what did you mean when you said it was written in a tortured way to make sure the CBO didn't score the mandate as a tax?
Once again, it was using inappropriate language to try to sound impressive about something to my colleagues.
You see a trend developing here, Professor Gruber?
I don't understand the question.
It's a lot of stupid quotes you've made. That's the trend.
A lot of
you see them?
Inexcusable quotes. Yeah.
Right. And again, your defense is that you're not a politician. The lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. Well, what does a non-politician do in talking about political advantages?
A non-politician is talking about political advantages to try to make himself seem smarter by conjecturing about something he doesn't really know.
So you're a professor at MIT and you're worried about not looking smart enough?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you succeeded, if that was your goal. Now, I want to ask you, are you sorry? When did you realize that these comments were inappropriate? Because it took you about a year to apologize, so I'm trying to figure out if you realized sooner that they were inappropriate, or was it just the morning before you went on MSNBC that you realized that it was inappropriate? When did you realize that these comments are indefensible and inappropriate?
I honestly didn't remember making them.
You didn't remember calling your fellow citizens stupid, and you didn't remember saying that you're the only person who cares about the uninsured, that the rest of your fellow citizens don't give a damn about the uninsured? You don't remember saying that?
I don't, because they were really glib and thoughtless comments that I made.
Well, Professor Gruber, let me just tell you what it looks like from this vantage point, is that you thought that they were really pithy and really funny until the video showed up. And then even then, it took you a little while to apologize. And what I'm struggling with is whether your apology is because you said it or because you meant it. Which are you apologizing for? Because you said it or because you meant it?
I didn't mean it. I'm apologizing.
All of these quotes that I just read to you, you didn't mean a single one of them. Not a one.
What I said, Congressman, is that I was using glib, thoughtless, and really inexcusable language.
You used them a lot. You used them a lot, Professor Gruber, which tends to undercut the notion that you were sorry for an episodic misstatement. I just read to you about 10. You see why people might possibly think the apology is a little disingenuous? Maybe. I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
If the gentleman yield me just 10 seconds. Following up on Mr. Gowdy, when you made these repeated comments, these glib, inappropriate comments in an intellectual community with lots of other like-minded people, did anybody come up to you and tell you that what you were saying was inappropriate?
Not that I can recall, no.
I guess what you said was popular in that community. We now